As the introduction was just made there, my name is Ben Hatton and the account manager for Gatekeeper, and I'm just going to spend the next 20 minutes, 30 minutes or so just really sort of guiding you through the process of valuing your data. So rather than looking at the actual science behind all of the maps, we've seen that in the previous presentations, just looking at how Gatekeeper handles data and how you can get the most from it. So we're going to just go through those benefits and really to kind of identify a roadmap for action. So identifying what you're trying to get out of this data, but also some of the kind of setup and prep you can put in place to benefit from that. Once we've done that, we'll move on to look at how you can harness that data to analyse, inform and aid the decision-making process. And then we'll just step on to actually acting on that data you got in Gatekeeper itself. So Gatekeeper, it's a modular software system. It's office-based and it's scalable for the end user. So it can be put onto a single computer, network, even a smartphone, tablet for field access. We use a cloud-based backup to provide a secure storage facility for your data, and that also allows us to disseminate information and keep people networked in. So you could have laptops running in different locations. Gatekeeper, it's used by a variety of different professionals in the sector. So we've got growers and contractors using Gatekeeper, but we've also got agronomists and service providers who use it too. Just before we move on to the precision farming side of things, as Gatekeeper is a modular software system, there are a variety of different options. So we have a pesticide decision support tool called Sentinel Active. There are options for intensive cropping, accessing data on smartphones and tablets. With precision farming, though, there are a variety of different modules that provide various different levels of integration. And again, because it's a modular system, those can be tailored to the end user's requirements. They provide a variety of different tools within the software system. So if you're just interested in viewing those maps, then you can put on several modules to do that. If you're looking at actually generating your own variable application plans yourself or handling those from a third party, again, the tools can be put on. One of the big advantages of using precision farming data inside Gatekeeper is it offers a vast range of compatibility with all of the leading manufacturers, service providers and agronomy providers in the industry. So you can make sure that you can link in your valuable data from a variety of different machines you may have around the farm or service providers or people who are providing you with advice. I mean, one of the main things that we always focus on really is this integration area. So integration for us is very important, not only that you can link in different data sources from outside of the office and outside the farming business, but mainly that precision farming data in Gatekeeper sits alongside the everyday crop records that you're managing. So it doesn't have to be all whistles and bells, fancy maps. The precision farming data can sit alongside non-precision farming activities. So what are the benefits of actually using Gatekeeper and precision farming? Well, once you've got this data into a central hub, you have one interface to learn and use. It can provide you with a variety of different tools to analyse, inform and aid your decision-making process. It allows you to compare different maps from a variety of different data sources, and it fits those alongside everyday business management. And by that I mean your input costs, grain trades, pesticide management. Reports, variety of different options there, so you actually can get the data back out. So it's not all about putting information straight into Gatekeeper. You can combine your own local knowledge as well as the information and knowledge of those professionals in the industry. And we've seen from the previous presentations this morning that actually there's a lot of expert advice out there, and it's our ability to bring that back into a system and use that in conjunction with your own farm knowledge and local understanding of what's going on with the fields and the business itself. So what type of data can Gatekeeper handle? Well, it really is a sort of open-ended book. It could just be boundaries, guidance lines, machine settings. So the ability to standardize information from around the fleet on the farm. You may have zone maps. You may have information that you've got set up on the farm. We've all got maps on the wall, drainage plans, soil maps from previous generations. So we can scan those, bring those into Gatekeeper. And it can fit those alongside other bits of information too. Yield offtake, soil samples, crop sensing, canopy scanning, and even variable rate maps as well. So that's what Gatekeeper could do in a nutshell, but just coming back to the valuing side of it, valuing your data. When we're selling Gatekeeper or advising how it can be used, always an underlying sort of process really is to make sure that the user's got a clear aim on what they're trying to achieve with the software, with their time, and with the information they've got at their disposal. And really, it's creating a roadmap. So on the screen there we've got several boundaries. They can either be drawn by the user themselves on the software, imported from in a common file format, or even imported into Gatekeeper via GPS device. But again, it brings those accurate field areas and sits those alongside the field records to update the field areas. Provide, if you like, RPA information so you know exactly how much the area you're working and how much you can get paid for it. Even for contractors as well, to provide them with accurate information on the areas they're working on their clients' fields. Just building on that, some of these fields now have got some guidance lines identified around there. So the ability to bring in data from a variety of different sources, and again, it doesn't matter which colour machine you're working with, once that data is imported into Gatekeeper, it's standardised. So it's about pulling it all together. We can overlay other maps, but really the main point of bringing this map up is to identify that you can use your own local knowledge in conjunction with this valuable precision farming data. Here on this old ordnance survey map, you can clearly see in this particular field, the old field boundaries are identified, zones in themselves. You don't need maps to tell you that. This is knowledge that you know from walking your own fields and farms. And again, just to highlight the point that these maps do fit alongside crop records in general for those non-precision farming activities. And this particular map is just linking those crop types back onto the maps. So using that accurate area from the GPS device and pooling on field records and field information. So other aims. Maybe you've got clear zones identified, either drawn yourself or identified that you know you need to go and tackle for various different applications. Drilling, slug pellets, variable rate inputs of fertiliser or other ag chem products. Or maybe you don't know. Maybe you would like to employ the services of other providers who can actually go out and give you this information from data sources that are not readily available from yourselves. So scan data, satellite images, you can bring those all together. And then this final map here, we've got a yield offtake. So it's about bringing this valuable information that's been accurately recorded, putting it into Gatekeeper, okay, and we can put it through a cleaning process, but it's about fitting it alongside information that you really like to know, i.e., how much are you making money-wise on that field, on that farm. Okay, preparation. I put a filing cabinet on the screen for a reason, but quite honestly, with software such as Gatekeeper, I see it no different as a filing cabinet. Once you've got your aims identified, and you've got that roadmap in place of data sources you've got available to you and how you want to work with it, spend a bit of time setting the system up. Time is also very important, not for the time you put into the office to get this up and running, to maximise the time you've got working in the field. The timeliness of those operations are sometimes quite critical, certainly for products that are being put back onto the field, but you can only go and harvest a field once in that season. So if you haven't got that system set up right to handle the yield data efficiently and quickly and maximise your time whilst you're working, that window of opportunity is lost until next season to get it right. Gathering data, so number 3. One of those aims really should be to understand what data sources are available to you. Do you have GPS kit on the farm? Do you need to employ someone else to go out and provide that information for you? Are you working with a service provider to actually zone out that field or provide some sample results? Have you got access to that yourself? So again, you can make life a lot easier if you have a clear understanding of which data sources you can pull on. Gatekeeper preparation, again, just going back to that filing cabinet. No difference really. If we were to set up Gatekeeper and to allow it to import data, it would be the same process as setting up a filing cabinet to ensure that you've got the labels in the right position. So you've got data coming into Gatekeeper. You can readily access that, and not just access data for an individual field, but if you want to bring data in for the whole wheat crop that you're harvesting, you can nice and quickly bring that out and act on it. So it's seamless and maximises your time. Let the dog wag the tail. Again, this sort of comes back to the fact that you don't have to do everything on Gatekeeper as a starting point. For example, guidance lines, GPS settings. Our general advice would always be to make the best of the information you've got. This information, such as guidelines, would tend to be set up in the cab, in the field. So pull that data in. Okay, Gatekeeper can set up field boundaries, and you can mark and measure on the screen, but I would always advise that if you've got access to accurate GPS information, bring that into Gatekeeper and let Gatekeeper standardise. Works record structure. We'll come on to that in a minute, but it's about identifying a clear route for the data to come into Gatekeeper and how it can be used to save time. Management of data. Well, that follows on from item number 6, really. If you haven't got the correct structure in place, you can't do something with it. You can't just drop a piece of paper in your filing cabinet and expect to go and find it unless all the drawers are labelled correctly, you know where it is. So it's about saving yourselves time. Support and training. Expert advice is available from everywhere, not just from Gatekeeper staff, but also other industry professionals, from your agronomist, your advisor, your machinery manufacturer as well. So to put this in context, just going to run through a few slides now to kind of give you a bit of a story and just to sort of bring those bits to those points into play. And the example is going to be about importing yield data, but to be fair, the principles apply across a range of data sources. So a key setup for importing data, in yield data in this example, is to make sure that you have accurate boundaries logged against your field records. This ensures that the working area of that field is identified, and when you bring those yield maps back in, they're going to fit on those fields seamlessly. Harvest products created. Gatekeeper contains a variety of different product lists for products you're applying onto the field, but also crops you're harvesting off. If you're going to go and harvest a field, it's nice to know what crop you're harvesting and how that may be sold out afterwards. So again, a little bit of preparation in setting up those products correctly. Machine setup. As well as recording the activity on the field, you can record the machine that's done the work as well. So not only do you get that extra traceability, but you can also tie in a running cost to that machine as well. Again, to bring this precision farming activity into a general business management focus. And lastly, we've got a work plan. Again, coming back to filing cabinet, a structure identified on how you're going to bring this data back in. The fields to be harvested, the output products that will be traded, and the work instruction is broken down into organised jobs. Why? To save yourselves time. You don't want to be sitting on the headland trying to set up fields, boundaries, chucking the data in and hoping it's going to get to the right place so you can use it at a later date. So moving on, we've created all this bit of background information. We've set up the work instruction. Gatekeeper can pass this out to the machine to standardise that information between the office and the cab to ensure that not only the operators but the farm managers, the contractors and the advisors are all working on the same information. So you can send out field lists, boundaries and guidance lines, work instructions. And on this particular screen, I appreciate at the back it's probably not too clear, but you can tailor the export process from a software system like Gatekeeper to the machine. Therefore, if you're only going to harvest a wheat crop, you certainly don't need to send out your oilseed rape and barley fields. Guidance lines can be sent out. Again, send out what's necessary. And by having Gatekeeper as this holding tool, it allows you to push data off where it's needed. We even have a little option on the screen here, but some users still fail to find it or use it, but view the card data. Before you write a prescription onto a data card to go and plug into your display unit, check what's on there. Make sure it's organised correctly. Obstacles in the field as well. this can now be used as a direct reference for putting fertilizer back onto the field, replacing what that crop's taken out. Of course, using conjunction with other data sources as well. But these tools are all accessible and readily available. Bringing it on to business management, this particular user's tied in their grain trades in Gatekeeper as well, so now they've got the financial variability across that field as well. By building up different data sources, that then shows you the variability of the crop that's been harvested, but also if you're tackling products variably onto the field too, you're starting to get an overall picture of how your performance and your precision farming techniques are actually reflecting on the bottom line. So there's some of the do's, but these are some of the don'ts, if you like. Particular examples that we often see where people have maybe not set the data up correctly, or some things that have been overlooked. And on this particular example, we've got two boundary maps for the same field. Interestingly, the same field we've just seen. And these are GPS spikes we've got on the left-hand side, and on the right, what we affectionately called a pigtail, but in effect where the machine's reversed into the corner and proceeded round to gather that data. So in this particular example, the user would have to sort of just clean that boundary map up, before they record yield data into it, to make sure that the yield recordings are recorded against the field correctly, and also you get the correct working areas as well. Setting up products. Just a screenshot from Gatekeeper about setting up your output products. We often see yield data that's brought back into Gatekeeper straight from the field, so it's had no setup put in place to start with. And the crop that's been harvested comes in as unallocated. So we have a selection of maps dropped into Gatekeeper, all unallocated crops. And at that point there, we then have to assign the maps back off to the different fields, start stitching it all together. Again, a bit of a headache, but with that correct preparation and this work plan structure in place of how you're going to go and cut those fields, the product you're going to harvest will alleviate a lot of that time afterwards. In an ideal world, we'd always have that preparation set up, and we'd also always link the software in the office back to the machines to allow that seamless data flow. Now, that's not always practical. Certainly contractors who go out, they don't maybe know the field names, they may not have that boundaries in the first place, so they're setting data up on the fly whilst they're working. However, even if you're working in that sort of scenario, you can still put some measures in place through good preparation to receive data back into Gatekeeper, so that this makes this whole import process a lot easier. And this particular example, we're seeing that same data recording that we looked at earlier, but in this example it doesn't know where it's going. It's going to drop each of those different yield maps, even for the same field, into different records, because the system doesn't know any better at this point. It's not a case of panicking, but there are options even at this stage to put some setup in place to make sure you can make the benefit of that valuable data. Okay, on this screenshot here, this sort of buries into the fact that without correct boundary setup, and just going out and particularly, applying a product or harvesting these fields, the display in this example doesn't know, well, where one field ends and where one begins. That field could be called manna field, and because that's just been, the machines just carried on working, the recordings have carried on. If this operator had actually set up the fields and the boundaries in Gatekeeper first, and made sure that they stitch each of those yield recordings to the correct field, it prevents this duplication of data coming into the system. Software versions. Gatekeeper works alongside a variety of other software systems in the market, and also in-cab displays and so on and so forth. It's important to make sure that they're all operating on the correct software version so they can exchange data seamlessly. Gatekeeper is updated purely by using it and synchronizing the software, so it will always make sure that you're working on the current version. But if Gatekeeper software then builds in a new feature for a particular machinery manufacturer, it's important to make sure that you're also updating that piece of kit in the cab as well to maintain that communication. And finally, time. I'm sure we've all been a bit guilty of it, but USB sticks full of yield data that we don't pull into the previous spring. really there's some accurate data there. If it gets to that point a long time after the event, have we got the work plan in place? Is the data ready? Bring that data in a timely manner while it's fresh in your mind. And with yield data, a very good tip would always be go out and cut a field and bring that data back into the system. Make sure it's recording as intended. To go and cut the whole farm and then try and bring the data back in to realise actually the recorder wasn't turned on correctly, it's a bit too late then. So timeliness is key. Not only bringing the data in, but little and often. So in summary, there are a few stages to work through to make sure you can bring that data into the system, and that's typical of a lot of systems. But with that correct preparation, understanding of what you're trying to achieve, what your data sources are, who in the industry you should be talking to and working with, and which advice you should be seeking is vitally important. Once you've got that roadmap in place, make sure that you've got the correct structure to set up so you can take control of that data that's come back in, but also use it for further applications, further business management decisions, and fit it alongside the everyday activities. Thank you.